Imagine the weight of being scrutinized for your relationship status at a certain age, as if love and companionship must follow a rigid timeline dictated by society. It's an unnecessary burden, an unfair judgment, but life has its own rhythm, and sometimes, stories unfold in ways we least expect. This is Jennifer's story, one of love, disillusionment, and resilience. Jennifer, at 35, had experienced the ebbs and flows of life with quiet strength. Once a dedicated office clerk, she had transitioned into the role of a housewife, a shift she had never quite envisioned for herself. Yet, she embraced it, finding joy in the simplicity of daily life. Her path to love had been far from linear, but it ultimately led her to Stephen, a man whose unwavering spirit and warm demeanor initially captured her heart. Stephen worked in the transportation sector, driving a light truck for deliveries, a job that ensured he was home each evening, a detail that once reassured Jennifer of their potential for stability and connection. Their love story had begun in the confines of a shared workplace, where Jennifer had been drawn to Stephen's casual confidence and the effortless charm with which he navigated social interactions. She admired his easygoing nature, the way he made conversations flow without pretense. It was she who had taken the first step, emboldened by a sense of certainty she couldn't quite explain. Stephen, to her delight, reciprocated her feelings, and within 8 months, their whirlwind romance culminated in marriage. Hopeful and brimming with dreams, they embarked on their journey together, believing they had found in each other a lifelong companion. But love, as Jennifer soon realized, can be deceptive. The tenderness and understanding that had once defined Stephen's demeanor began to wane, replaced by bouts of impatience and unkindness. The man she had fallen for, the one who had once made her laugh with his easy humor and gentle teasing, became someone she struggled to recognize. Verbal outbursts became an unsettling norm, and Jennifer found herself retreating further into silence, unwilling to provoke his unpredictable moods. What she had imagined as a partnership of equals now felt like a precarious existence, where peace was a fleeting luxury rather than a constant state. Despite the difficulties, Jennifer held on to hope, believing in the possibility of change. She wished to contribute financially to their household, hoping that working again might rekindle a sense of purpose and independence. She envisioned a future where they could save for a home, perhaps even start a family. But when she broached the topic with Stephen, her hopes were swiftly shattered. His reaction was anything but supportive. Anger flared in his eyes, and his words cut deeper than she had anticipated. Fear crept in, replacing the love she had once felt so surely. The man who had once represented security now embodied uncertainty, and she found herself questioning the very foundation of their union. The turning point came during a seemingly ordinary family gathering. Stephen's family had embraced Jennifer warmly, offering her a sense of belonging she hadn't expected. Unlike Stephen, who had always been private about his relationships, his family welcomed her with open arms, making her feel as though she had been part of their world forever. Thanksgiving at her in-laws' home was a cherished occasion, filled with laughter and the warmth of familial bonds. It was a rare reprieve from the strain she felt at home. On this particular evening, the atmosphere was light-hearted, filled with jokes and playful banter. A relative made a harmless jest about his own wife, prompting laughter all around. But when Stephen joined in, the mood shifted. His words, laced with cruelty, left Jennifer stunned. He compared her unfavorably to another, insinuating that she lacked a certain womanliness, a remark that stung far more than he seemed to realize. The room erupted in laughter, but to Jennifer, it felt like a wave of humiliation crashing over her. Only her in-laws seemed to share in her discomfort. Sensing her distress, her father-in-law quickly intervened, gently suggesting that she help in the kitchen, a timely escape from an increasingly unbearable situation. Once inside, the weight of her emotions became too much to bear. Tears spilled freely, silent and unchecked. Her mother-in-law, ever perceptive, wrapped her in a comforting embrace, treating her not as an outsider, but as a daughter in pain. Meanwhile, her father-in-law, a man of quiet authority, addressed the gathering with a firm demand for apologies, and while the others complied, Stephen remained stubborn, his refusal deepening the fissure that had already begun to form within their marriage. That night marked a shift. Jennifer's visits to her in-laws became less frequent, her once strong connection with them dimming under the strain of Stephen's growing resentment. At home, the walls seemed to close in around her. Every day felt like walking a tightrope, her every action measured to avoid triggering Stephen's temper. Living on the 6th floor of their apartment building, she felt physically and emotionally trapped. the confines of her home mirroring the entrapment of her marriage. Then came the darkest days, days when Jennifer struggled to find a reason to keep going. Isolation wrapped around her like a shroud, and despair took root in her heart. It was in this fragile state that her sister, Susan, made an unannounced visit. 2 years older and forever youthful in spirit, Susan had not intended to stop by. She had been in the area overseeing the renovations of her new club and, on a whim, decided to check in on her younger sister. From the moment Susan saw Jennifer, she knew something was terribly wrong. The bond they shared, one forged in childhood and strengthened through the years, allowed Susan to see beyond the forced smiles and tired eyes. Concern flared in her gaze, her intuitive nature immediately sensing the turmoil Jennifer had tried so desperately to hide. Jennifer, unable to contain the emotions she had bottled up for so long, finally broke down. She confided in Susan, recounting the painful truths of her marriage, the loneliness, the fear, the deep-seated unhappiness she had come to accept as her reality. Susan listened, her fury barely concealed, ready to storm into the apartment and confront Stephen without hesitation. But one look at Jennifer's fearful expression stopped her. She understood that force would not bring resolution, that Jennifer needed more than just outrage, she needed a way out. And so Susan proposed a plan, a daring, almost reckless plan, one that made Jennifer's heart race with fear and excitement all at once. Could she really break free? Was there a chance for a life beyond the shadows she had been living in? With Susan's unwavering support, Jennifer found the courage to take the first steps toward reclaiming her life. It would not be easy, nor would it be immediate, but for the first time in a long while, hope flickered in the darkness. What followed was a journey of resilience, courage, and the fight for a future that, for the first time in years, felt like it might truly belong to her. I never expected to run into Stephen that day. It was an ordinary afternoon, the kind where you go about your business without a second thought, only to have the past collide with you in the most unexpected way. The moment our eyes met, I could see the familiar smugness in his gaze, the condescending smirk that once had the power to make me feel small. A wave of old emotions surged through me, memories of disappointment, betrayal, and the suffocating realization of who he truly was beneath the charm he once used to ensnare me. His voice dripped with mockery as he sauntered closer, the air thick with his arrogance. "So, have you moved on? Found someone new?" He sneered, his words laced with the same superiority he had always wielded like a weapon. He was fishing for a reaction, eager to see if he still had any hold over me, but I refused to give him that satisfaction. My expression remained unreadable, my silence a shield against his taunts. Before I could formulate a response, Susan appeared beside him. Her entrance was impeccably timed, as though fate had scripted this moment for maximum effect. Stephen, emboldened by her presence, tightened his arm around her in a possessive display, his smirk widening as he delivered his next blow. "We're getting married," he announced, watching me closely, waiting for a flicker of pain or regret to betray me. But I had long since severed any emotional ties to him. I met his gaze steadily, refusing to flinch or waver. I let him bask in his perceived victory, let him believe he had somehow won in this twisted game he imagined we were playing. He had no idea that I was not the one who had lost. Just as he was reveling in his supposed triumph, Susan took a step away from him, her demeanor shifting from affectionate to indifferent. Her voice, calm and measured, cut through his self-congratulatory moment. "Actually, Stephen, I have no intention of marrying you." The words landed like a thunderclap. The confidence on Stephen's face faltered, his expression morphing into disbelief, then confusion. "What?" he stammered, looking from Susan to me as if searching for answers that weren't there. I crossed my arms, tilting my head slightly, feigning innocent curiosity. "Oh, you didn't see that coming?" I mused, barely suppressing the amusement bubbling beneath the surface. The truth unraveled before him in real time, his mind struggling to catch up with the betrayal. The reality was simple. Susan and I had orchestrated this moment down to the finest detail. We had set the stage, carefully constructing the illusion that he was the one in control when, in truth, he had been dancing to our tune the entire time. The goal? To secure my divorce and ensure the most favorable settlement possible. And he had walked right into it, blind and oblivious. As realization dawned on him, his disbelief gave way to anger. You played me." His voice was a mixture of outrage and wounded pride. Susan maintained her composure, her lips curving into a small, knowing smile. "Entertained you, perhaps," she corrected with an air of detachment. but nothing more than that. She leaned in slightly, her next words delivered with cutting precision. Did you really think someone would genuinely fall for you after seeing who you truly are? The color drained from his face as Susan's sharp words sliced through his defenses. 4 months, he had believed he was in control, had convinced himself that he was the pursuer when, in truth, he had been the prey all along. His protests grew louder, his voice rising in frustration as he tried to deny the reality staring him in the face. But Susan and I had long since prepared for this moment. Before Stephen could fully unravel, my brother-in-law entered the scene, tall and imposing. His presence alone was enough to make Stephen hesitate. He was a man of quiet strength, someone who exuded a sense of authority without needing to say a word. Is there a problem here? He asked casually, but the underlying warning was clear. Stephen recoiled slightly, his bravado faltering. His eyes darted between me, Susan, and my brother-in-law, realization sinking in deeper with every passing second. This was all a setup, he muttered, more to himself than to any of us. I let out a slow breath, allowing a small, victorious smile to touch my lips. Yes, Stephen, and you fell for it beautifully. His fists clenched at his sides, his face darkening with barely contained rage. You tricked me, he spat. You lied to me. I tilted my head slightly. Oh, you mean the way you lied to me for years? The way you manipulated, belittled, and used me? My voice was steady, firm, laced with the certainty of someone who had finally reclaimed their power. This isn't about deception, Stephen, this is about justice, and you just witnessed yours. Just then, the doors to the restaurant opened, and in walked our parents, along with key family members from both sides. The weight of their collective gaze bore down on Stephen, their expressions a mixture of disappointment and condemnation. With deliberate movement, I reached into my bag and pulled out a small device. The voice recording played, filling the room with the undeniable proof of his character. His own words, spoken in that sickeningly smug tone, detailing how our marriage was nothing more than a convenience, how he viewed me as disposable, how he had reveled in his supposed victory over me. The room remained silent, save for the echo of his own voice damning him in a way nothing else could. When the recording ended, I looked him in the eye and spoke the final words I would ever say to him. Stay away from me and my family, forever. My brother-in-law stepped forward, and within moments, Stephen was escorted out, his protests falling on deaf ears. Outside, he made a final desperate scene, which resulted in the police being called. The last glimpse I caught of him was as he was being taken away, his downfall complete. Inside the restaurant, the tension dissipated, replaced by an overwhelming sense of relief. My sister and I exchanged victorious high fives, our bond strengthened by the trials we had faced together. The night ended in celebration, surrounded by those who truly mattered, those who had stood by me through it all. Today, I walk forward without the weight of my past dragging me down. Susan and I work side by side, stronger than ever. Every day is a testament to resilience, to the power of taking back one's life. The shadows of my past may linger, but they no longer define me. I am free, and I am finally at peace.